So I am here with the one and only Kaz Riley. Hurrah! Welcome, Kaz.
Thanks for having me. It's lovely to be here this morning.
So I'm Kaz Riley. You are a hypnotist and international trainer. For those that don't know, she mentors hypnotists in 17 countries. She's founder of Sexual Freedom Hypnosis. You can check out the rest of her impressive bio online over at the convention website. Now, Kaz, I was in your presentation last year. I loved it. Really enjoyable. I was very naive about this topic, about this application of hypnosis, and I love and I want to celebrate your diligence post-conference, because after last year's convention, and as preparation for this year's convention, you ran a poll. Tell me and just share with us your findings and your reasons behind doing that.
Okay, it's always an interesting exercise. I've done this a few times in a few different places now, and the results are always very similar. Which kind of when we're kind of doing a little bit of research is a bit of a strong word, but a bit of back just to see what happens, I guess, when we run these polls. But basically, what I did was, after doing the workshop, the presentation on libido last year, obviously you want to move it on, and it's kind of trying to find out what people want to know and what they actually need to know in terms of within sexual dysfunction isn't always the same thing. So I ran just a little poll saying, what do you want me to speak about next year? What do you think would be useful? Looking at male sexual dysfunction or female sexual dysfunction, what that would be, kink-friendly hypnotherapy, and something else. I forget what the last one was. I don't think there was any votes for the last one, which is probably why it's gone out of my memory.
Yeah. And
what always happens is people always click male sexual dysfunction, in particular erectile dysfunction, which is interesting because it's there, and it's certainly something that I see, but hardly ever people tick female sexual dysfunction. Yet it's the one area where there is least people out there, but there's more clients. It's the one thing, I get more females coming and asking me for help than I see men, but much more with women, especially with, the things where they've tried all kinds of things, they've been through the psychosexual therapy, and there's nothing physically wrong with them. We always get them checked by a doctor, but certainly things like vaginismus, for example. And often what I find is that often within the hypnosis community, they'll often say, well, what is vaginismus? They're not even sure what it is. For those that don't know, it's the involuntary clamping of the vaginal muscles when it's trying to be penetrated, whether that's with a tampon or penis or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And there's lots that we can do with hypnosis. So what I've done with this presentation, it's called the vaginismus monologues and more,
which I love,
which is not going to be all about vaginismus, but it really comes from the women that I work with that have sexual dysfunction can feel very isolated and alone, where if you go and look up something like erectile dysfunction on the internet, there's a whole wealth of stuff, and there has been within hypnosis for years. So I'm trying to readdress the balance, not by just going completely over to women, but by looking at both, because there are differences, but there are a lot of similarities, and both is just as important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I think one of the points that you mentioned there highlights the need and the demand outweighs the amount of kind of specialist knowledge and application that hypnotherapists have. And I think one of the things that really piqued my interest with the write-up about your presentation coming up at this year's event is you wrote that there's a more open attitude towards sex, and it's becoming more culturally acceptable, and that you're going to be offering up attendees a protocol to work with, because it's a 2-hour presentation. It's going to be like a full-on presentation, right? And one of the things we discussed off air was this idea that there is becoming a marketplace for it, yet the hypnotherapists with this kind of specialist information just aren't around in the numbers that perhaps the demand and need is there. Would I be correct in saying that?
Yeah, I think the market has actually always been there. It's it's just not been it's not been easy to find. People have found it very difficult to find that information or to find the people that they want. So the market has always been there.
Right, yes.
What we're now trying to do is to get more people to meet the needs of that particular market with hypnosis. So it's there, it's sat, it's waiting. We definitely need more people that are comfortable working in this area. And I think as soon as you say the word sex, it's a bit like death, isn't it? The two taboo subjects. But the way that sex in life in general is now, people talk about it more, it's seen more, it's portrayed much more on TV, it's something that's much more open, there are more discussions, there's a whole realm of different sexual identities, different sexual practices that have become much more mainstream, certainly over maybe the past 5 or 10 years. And what that then does is, one, it puts pressure on people. So the incidence of sexual dysfunction is either on the rise or it's been reported more. We're not really sure which one it is.
Yeah.
But of course, like I said in my last presentation, for women, there wasn't even a classification for sexual dysfunction until 1998. So, in that way, women are now beginning to realise that some of the things that they're experiencing, actually, it's not just a kind of put up and shut up and get on with it or not. It's about that there is help out there. And, the attitude towards sex in general is that one more of pleasure and enjoyment rather than, this taboo subject that nobody should talk about.
And additionally, the fact that perhaps a therapist can announce and demonstrate and show that they have an awareness of things such as vaginismus, such as kind of related issues, can also help potential clients think and find it much more approachable, find that individual much more approachable, because they know what they're talking about and they've got that almost listed. Along with all the other things that they're working with, for example. Would that be the case?
That's absolutely, definitely the case. I mean, I often get clients that will approach me and it's kind of like, right, this was on your website, and I know this is okay, where we all hear about the therapists that say, oh, well, they came in with weight loss, but actually it was erectile dysfunction because or actually it was something else. And that's because if you don't tell your clients what it is that you do, if you don't kind of make yourself approachable, then it's very, something like that, because that taboo is everywhere, isn't it? It's not just within the therapy world, it's everywhere. So people are kind of like, should I say or should I not? Or would this person help me or would I not? And they end up doing this kind of dance to find out whether or not this therapist might be able to help them or not. Whereas if you've got that stated on your website and you're actively kind of welcoming people in who have got these issues, immediately, they become much more comfortable, and also it allows you as a therapist to have a very frank conversation very quickly, so that you can get on with the therapy rather than kind of trying to work out what it is that this person actually needs. And we've all been there. I know I used to be there before I advertised, and speaking to people just at the convention, it was kind of like, oh, this person came in for weight loss, or they came in for smoking cessation, and actually it was their libido, or it was erectile dysfunction, or it was vaginismus, or whatever it was. So simply by putting it out there, it's that we get back what we put out, don't we? So if we advertise in a certain area, then that's what people pick up on.
Yeah, I really enjoyed your presentation last year, as I already mentioned. One of the things was that it actually enabled me to step out of a kind of Beavis and Butthead mode, whereby, or I don't know if you ever remember, Harry Enfield used to do a sketch about a guy called Tim Nice but Dim, and anytime anyone mentioned girls, he'd start kind of sniggering and be kind of rendered into, regressed into a sort of child mentality. And I was concerned at myself, and one of the reasons I wanted to come and sit in your presentation was to normalize it. And to normalize, the way in which I felt about the terminology and about the subject matter and so on. And I'm really looking forward to this presentation of yours, to kind of take that on a level.
Yeah, yeah, you're not the only one that's felt like that. Just so you know, you're not alone.
Yeah.
I get a lot of interesting comments. Usually, the comments I get normally before a presentation or after are very different. As I'm going in, it's like, oh, you know, how many orgasms are we going to have in your lecture? And then by the end of it, then I'll be coming back going, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. You know, now I kind of get it. And, you know, and I think that's really cool, actually. I don't mind that. I think that's, you know, a good way just to kind of open people's eyes a little bit, because I think we do culturally, we're conditioned to kind of be a bit kind of giggly. We all turn into teenagers.
Absolutely.
So with this one, I'm looking forward even more to kind of taking it past libido, because libido isn't an issue for everybody. Sexual dysfunction and loss of libido don't necessarily go together. I get lots of people that have got a really healthy libido, but their sexual dysfunction then prevents them from engaging the way that they want to. So
having a desire but not the capability, I should imagine, is incredibly frustrating.
And you know, it's a very fundamental part of being an adult human, isn't it? Is the ability to have sex. And it's not all about performance anxiety. I know when I was kind of way back years ago in hypno school, I was taught most things are about performance anxiety, and there is some of that, but sometimes it's all kinds of things. And that's where the kind of protocol comes in. You know, I call it the trans protocol. It was very handy that it fit into such a word that we kind of associate with hypnosis, but it's easy to remember. But it's a lot about kind of teaching and education, release of shame and guilt, addressing traumas, kind of addressing or normalizing sexual function, because quite often people don't even realize what normal is, because they're seeing all this stuff because it's become more mainstream, but actually there's a lot of misinformation out there. And then things like communication, connection, and then the biggie, the absolute biggie, which is permission for pleasure, enjoyment.
Yeah, right.
You know, in life.
That we're allowed to enjoy it.
Yeah, you know, and for men and women, that's a big thing, because if you look at performance and pain and all those kinds of things. So we'll look at all of that, and I'll give people a protocol to take away. We'll do some demos. I tend to, you know, we're not dealing with the actual sexual dysfunction, but often I'll do a demo about permission for pleasure, which I think is something that we all need more of in life. We all seem to be feeling guilty about having a good time about anything at the moment, don't we?
Yeah. I can't wait. For all those tuning in now, you want more information on Kaz Riley's presentation at this year's UK Hypnosis Convention, go visit ukhypnosisconvention.co.uk, where you can grab your tickets as well. Kaz, I can't wait to see you in November and welcome you back. Very popular last year you were, and looking forward to sitting in on your presentation this year. I look forward to seeing you in November. Thank you very much for today.
You're very welcome. I'll see you soon.
So